Agajanana Padmarkam Gajanana Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhattanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Ya Devi Stuyate Nityam Vibhudair Veda Paragaihi Same Vasatu Jihvagre Brahma Rupa Saraswati Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaskar and welcome. Swagatam, Suswagatam. We welcome you this evening to Rama Rama Rama, a series of webinars brought to you by Heritage, Indica and the Center for SoftPower in celebration of Rama, Sita, Hanuman and every character that is there enshrined in the Ramayana. As we all know, for us, the Ramayana is itihaasa, which means iti ha asa, thus it was. It's a chronicle of the history of Bharata, a living legend that still inspires people to emulate Rama, who is the embodiment of Dharma. Rama is called Ramo, Vigrahavan, Dharmaha. Rama is a personification of Dharma. In this series, we have included a variety of topics, speakers, from many different backgrounds who have been touched and inspired by this epic Shrimad Valmiki Ramayana that has no borders of geography and has traversed the world, inspired many other works in many languages. In many countries, it finds pride of place. We started with a talk on the Maha Yagna in the Ramayana by Dr. Ranganji. And the next day we had one about Ramayana that has crossed the borders of India. We had Ramayana in the arts of Southeast Asia. And after that, we had a talk in the footsteps of Rama. This was all about the journey that Rama took from Ayodhya all the way to Sri Lanka. Well, there are so many discussions about dating the Ramayana. Is it true? Is it not true? Did Rama go to an engineering college? How did he build a bridge? You know, so many things. And there are so many other questions also about, oh, Rama stood behind the tree and killed Vali. Rama did this to Sita, etc., ad infinitum. There is any number of discussions on the Ramayana by many people who have not even read the Valmiki Ramayana. I think that people have a right to have all these varied questions. And you know, it's decisions that they've made about everything if they have studied the Mula, if they have studied the text. Then you have a right, you can have a debate. Because, you know, in our country, everything has been open to questioning, open to debates, open to logic. We never said my way or the highway. But it's not about a doubting Thomas kind of a question, but it's a question from an understanding where you want to understand. So today we are going to have two speakers who are going to talk about Ramayana. For today, it's going to be a conversation. And we are going to see how Ramayana is relevant today, like most of our knowledge systems, because ours are knowledge that is beyond time and space. So it's knowledge that is contemporary at any point in time. So before I hand over these proceedings to Varsha to introduce the two people on our panel today, I request all of you to join me in your own spaces. Of course, everybody is muted, so you'll only hear me. We will chant Ramanavami 12 times. Sri Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Rama, Sri 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 Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram. Varsha? Yeah. So Varsha will take forward the session by introducing the two people on the panel. Thank you.
Namaste, everyone. I am very pleased to introduce the speakers for today's conversation. We have with us Sri Prakash Belawadi and Sri Vinay Varanasi. A short, brief bio about the two. Sri Prakash Belawadi is an Indian actor and a director. He is the managing trustee and founder of Centre for Film and Drama, which produces stage plays, conducts courses in filmmaking and acting. A very warm welcome to you, Prakash ji. Our second speaker for today is Sri Vinay Varanasi. Vinay is a public speaker and a curator. He tells stories from itihaasas and Puranas and intertwines them with philosophies and interpretations. He has spoken in multiple cities and has covered a host of topics. He has curated thematic programs along with classical musicians to showcase the intersection of narrative and music. A very warm welcome to you, Vinay. We will have a short Q&A from 7:45 with the speakers. I request the audience to put down their questions in the Q&A box and not on the chat box. It'll be easier for the speakers to access them. With that, I hand over the session to our speakers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Varsha. Prakash, you're on mute.
So thank you. Great pleasure to be here. I had a brief chat this morning with Vinay ji, and we have some kind of a very loose idea of, I wouldn't say structure, but but the framework of what our conversation could be. So I'll begin right away with a problem that has been bothering me over the last couple of months for personal reasons, because many of my friends, who are my contemporaries, they see in their families that the children have drifted away from, especially if they've been living abroad or if they've been living in ultra cosmopolitan places in cities.
Right.
They drifted away from the idea of Sanathana Dharma, even though the parents have been very diligent about, about inculcating in them the values that inform the Sanathana Dharma, how it does not derive from miraculous religion, but it derives from man's search for meaning, if I borrow from Viktor Frankl. So I'll begin with the question that seems to bother these young people the most. In Bhavabhuti's version of Uttara Ramayana, he says, the messenger is not really keen on telling Rama why anybody spoke anything about about Sita in such a loose manner. It is Rama's obsession to know that he keeps on asking, and he finally when he gets this, he reacts in this completely shocking manner, and he sends it off to the forest. And that is Bhavabhuti's interpretation.
Right.
But is there any way, Vinayji, that we could we could explain the compulsion that the Maryada Purushottam would have in making such a harsh decision concerning.
So I think that's a very interesting question to start with, because when we look at the Ramayana, this is one of the first frames often that gets associated with it, that, oh, it's a great story, but he leaves Sita like this. And this is actually the second such poke that comes, right? The first one is what has now been termed as the Agni Pariksha. So I think just kind of leading it as a continuum, because one episode kind of helps us understand and segue into the other. Firstly, interestingly, it's not even called an Agni Pariksha. In Valmiki's Ramayana, that word Pariksha doesn't come up at all. The popular story is that he asks her to enter fire. And in Valmiki's version, even prior to that. So I think the beauty of Ramayana is also in the non-linearity of the tale. It is in the fact that, when you look at event after event, if you just look at them in isolation, you could miss out certain highlights that he's trying to put across. The entire context of the Agni Pariksha, if we have to look at it, or the Agni Pravesham, sorry, the context there is that they have met now after being apart for 10 months, and his response is very lukewarm, if at all. And he just says that I have lived up to my Kshatriya Dharma and I have protected you. Now you are free to go where you wish to. And then after a brief dialogue, which is a very unpleasant one for both of them, because both of them are really not speaking to each other. It's almost as if they're speaking to the others. That she tells Lakshmana.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's a publicly conducted conversation.
It's a publicly conducted conversation. So what, in this context, when we look at this, Sita then enters into Agni and then her purity is proven. But the question here that comes most importantly for everybody is, so does Rama really doubt if she's pure? To answer this, we have to backtrack into the Sundarkanda, where the moment arrives where Hanuman is burning all of Lanka. And during that time, the Rakshasis who keep watch on Sita in the Ashokavanam, they come to Sita and they said, look, this morning we saw that there was a Vanara who was talking to you. Just wanted to let you know that now this guy's tail is being burnt. So good luck to you and good luck to this guy that has come to you with a message. So at that point, Sita panics and she thinks that, my goodness, he has come specifically for me. So I don't want his tail to burn. And she makes a very beautiful and very powerful shlokam, which connects to this moment in the Agni Pravesham. So that's where Valmiki's genius lies. Over there, she says, Yadimam Vritta Sampanna, if I have been true to my vows, Tat Samagama Lalasam, and if I am keen to be with him in my mind, in my manasa, in my vacha, in my speech, and in my actions. If I have been true to my vows and I am desperate to be back with him, and she inserts the third clause, and if he knows this. So that's where we have to underline that. Savijanati Dharmatma. There itself, she doesn't use the words Rama. She uses the words Dharmatma. If that Dharmatma knows that I have been true, I have been thinking of him and him alone, then may Hanuman's tail be cool. That is what Sita says over here. And immediately Hanuman does experience that his tail is cool. And he wonders, how is this happening? What is this because of? So when you look at a statement like that, there itself she has declared that Rama has absolutely no doubt on her purity. What Rama says immediately after the Agni Pravesham is also in line with this. He just after the tribulation is over, he says that, this was to let everybody know that you are absolutely free from any kind of blemish. But just before this, when she's about to enter, he says that you are like a lamp to somebody who has an eye infection. Now, this is a beautiful, beautiful analogy to use, because the idea is that you are the Deepam. Lokaika Deepankuram is what Lakshmi is called. You are the Deepa, but for the one who is seeing you with a twisted vision, for him, he'll never be able to understand you properly. And when you understand nuances like this, you'll see how Rama is playing also two parts. He's playing the Rajadharma of saying that, look, I had to do what I did, not just from my own angle. Because if it was merely from Rajadharmam alone, throughout the Kishkinda Kanda, the kind of suffering that Rama goes through, Valmiki talks about it periodically. There at that point, we don't see Rama mentioning anything saying, my dharma as a Kshatriya is only to go and rescue her and then leave her. If he had those thoughts at that point, they would have come. He says that everything seems unbearable to me. I cannot deal with any season. I cannot deal with spring because I don't have Sita by my side. So these episodes kind of gives us an insight into what is Rama going through. And in Valmiki's Uttarakhanda, the messenger just comes and says, it's not even the messenger. He sends his brothers out on regular patrols in the evening, and they come back saying that the people are unhappy. So this washerman story is a story that doesn't come in Valmiki Ramayana. It is just a generic piece of information that people are unhappy with Sita as their queen. And it is at this point now that Rama is again conflicted. Because here Rama's tone is very different. In the Agni Pravesham, we see Rama negotiating after and reinstating that Ananya Hridayam Sita Machitta Parirakshinim, he says, that Sita is inseparable from me like my own conscience. But over here, Rama takes a very stoic stance. He realizes now that no matter what he has done, despite the Agni Pravesham, there is still this friction, and his Raja Dharma is suffering somewhere. So with absolutely no trace of emotion, he tells Lakshmana that this has to be done. Lakshmana questions him, saying, how can you do this? How is it possible for you? But Rama just doesn't respond. And if you actually observe, even if you park aside the Narayanatvam and the divinity of Rama, we just observe the way Valmiki paints the emotions that he goes through. It's Rama almost ebbs into a silence afterwards. We hardly hear what is he thinking, what is he going through. And that's where you see the tragicness that Rama himself would have gone through, to have put Sita through that. It was not easy. And it's not that Sita fakes it or she accepts it very gracefully. She also says, is my life a life of sorrow? Was it meant to end in this? Was this what I was supposed to go towards? And of course, the heart goes out to her. But there is a strong understanding here of another kind, which we find in the Ananda Ramayana, that says that after Rama Rajyam has been established, and Rama ruled for 10,000 years, after Rama Rajyam has been established, there has to be a context to send them back. Again, when you look at the Ramayana in isolation, we may not be able to find this. But if you look in Krishna Avatar, there has to be a reason, something has to take him back all the way to Vaikuntha. So we see Gandhari giving him a curse, saying that, one day an arrow will shoot at your toe, a poisoned arrow, you will also go away like this. That is what eventually takes the Avatara Purusha back to where he came from. Here, what is the context? How will Rama and Sita just disappear? There's no happily ever after in our kind of stories, right? So this context sets that, where she goes back, and she goes back the same place she comes from. Eventually, she goes to Valmiki's ashram, gives birth to the twins, etc. But ultimately, she goes back into Bhugarbha. And he goes into Sarayu Jalam, into the waters of Sarayu. So he takes that route and she takes the route. So this in some senses becomes the context that splits them apart. And then, of course, the dynasty has to continue. So it has to be looked at from beyond the lens of him being cruel, but also understanding that there's a larger narrative, and also understanding that it was not easy for him as well. Because if it were that easy, he would have left her at any given chance. He didn't have to wait for a context. He could have done it far at any point, right? From the time that she, from Agni Pravesham onwards, till here. He wouldn't bring her here, let her be queen for 10,000 years, and then subject her to ridicule. Rama is not, he's not cruel.
That's a fascinating, interpretation or look at it. There's another thought that has occurred to me, and I have argued many times about this. One is a very obvious thing of saying that the author, whatever that may be the word that may mean here, could have made an easy way out for this.
Yeah.
There's a reason the author chooses not to.
Yeah.
Now you use the term Raj Dharma. That's what I'm coming to.
Mm-hmm.
When you win a battle like this, and she comes after being in the company of, or in the custody of another man for so many years, it becomes important that in case they have heirs, that it's actually Rama, it's from the Raghuvamsha, it's Rama's son. It's really important to say.
Absolutely.
People who get so agitated about dynasty politics today will understand this. I think fairly easy. It's a really important idea for him to say that. And it is the same thing that haunts him when she's pregnant and people are talking like.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's the thought I had, and I've argued about this many times. And it takes a kind of great emotional intensity for anybody to write a story of this kind of nuance, where somebody has to make such a sacrifice and is conflicted so much between Swadharma and Rajadharma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where we understand that in every version this part is what really tugs at the heartstrings, right? Like you said, this tug that happens between Rajadharma, Swadharma, and also, like you said very beautifully, it is about identifying that there are going to be heirs tomorrow. And this is a concept that we see historically as we agrarian societies develop, and there is the idea of passing on inheritance. Then it is necessary to pass it on to the bloodline. And therefore, that is when the idea of policing, if I can call it that, of body policing also comes in, that there is fidelity in these ideas, these constructs build from there. There's no doubt about that. That's how we have evolved as in terms of a timeline and in terms of our thought processes. But and I think what Valmiki stresses on very, very beautifully is the aspect that they don't shun away from the emotions that they experience. Both Rama and Sita themselves wholeheartedly embrace what they're feeling. Sita doesn't, at that point, the Sita that we know is very different, where she doesn't utter a word. But her entire conversation with Lakshmana leaves one thinking, saying, my goodness, what was she subjected to periodically? But she's able to reconcile. She goes there and she still teaches her children the Ramayana. And in her version of the Ramayana, they are not subjected to just one perspective alone. She's able to show them the entire larger than life.
She shows the Maryada Purusha to the children. She shows the
Maryada Purusha. So the bitterness doesn't come out. It's not, oh yeah, you let me tell you a story about a man who left me. And this man did all these things, but he left me. That's not her narrative. Her narrative is about Maryada Purusha. And in that, of course, the twins come to the kingdom and they sing it to Rama. And then they also say that, yes, he left his wife. But that is a part of the story. That is not the story. So I think that's also about kind of drawing that into the idea of what is the relevance of the Ramayana today. It's about wondering what is our story. What are we choosing to make our story? In Sita's case, she had that choice to make this entire thing her story and say, I have been subjected periodically and time and again. Everything has been about me and how terrible things have been for me. But in Sita's story, that's not the case. So how do you take something that's happening to you and keep it at a distance where you see it? Sita's version is not devoid of emotion either. She doesn't say, yes, this is all the Lord's Leela. No, she takes it. And she says, what is this? I don't particularly enjoy it. But she's able to maintain that distance from it, where she can see it as a happening and not the only happening in her life. And I think that's one area where the Ramayana becomes relevant for us as well, as to how do we negotiate when we are in positions either of Sita, Rama, or anyone connected to this complicated maze of emotions.
Very, 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 it is so, to me, it is so moving to listen to this from someone like you, because I'll tell you why it is important. And, I'm sorry if it sounds a little bit, ageist, but the thing is that this whole problem of somebody applying a modern nation state constitutional democratic template, everybody has a vote, and apply that kind of moral construct to an epic like the Ramayana comes with many problems. And one of the things that I want to say is that I want to start at the corner of the problem, because you come to the core of it, like say feminism and such constructs, and it's one thing. But I want to say the idea of Rajadharma, for instance. See, democracy is an instrument that should deliver Rajadharma. It's democracy by itself does not deliver any of the aspirations that seek democracy as an instrument. And especially our kind of democracy, I will say, for instance, the Westminster model, what it does is, if four parties are contesting an election, and say, let's say party A has a consistent vote of 20 out of 100, and somebody else has 10, or somebody has 12, and somebody has 30, let's just say, out of 100, and 40 or 50 don't vote, and only the entire game is between that 50 people who will decide whether remaining of all of the 100. And there are 30 committed votes, let us say, to one party, or 20 committed votes to one party. Then you win. But is that a democratic election to start with then? Does that reflect in any way the people's aspiration? In this country till today, not a single government has been formed with the support of 50% vote. I'm talking about general elections. In the states, it has happened sometimes, but not the general elections. My point is, the idea of Rajadharma is not practicing constitutionally provided values. It's a deeper idea of dharma. And the law is a subset in that. So in that context, I want to ask you another thing, like I want to hear from you. When Vali says, he turns around, he looks and he says, how can you do this? You're such a hero. And you're like a coward, you shoot from behind. And then, in the Yakshagana Prasangas, this is all night, this goes on, this conversation. Now, the thing is, even that, to somebody who sees, what is his real duty, the egoistic idea of saying, I will show him a hero at any time. Like some people demand, for instance, that when in the Karna's chariot wheel got stuck, then Krishna should have said, let's stop war.
Exactly.
You didn't stop war. The war, the real Dharma war to finish it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, when they apply this kind of morality, I think we need to respond in cogent ways and examples. What would you say?
That's a beautiful question, because I think when we look at the idea of dharma, also it's so beautiful in this example of Vali looking at Rama and saying, isn't it adharmic, first of all, to shoot at the back? And there are various stories that justify this. Somebody has said that, oh, Vali cannot be shot in the front, so Rama does it. But I want to keep aside the stories because that's not addressing the moral dilemma over here, right? But it is so interesting. In Vali's question himself, he's not talking about his own dharma or lack thereof. It is only all the dharma is being projected towards Rama. Now, because you beautifully brought in Karna as well, right? Karna, when his wheel gets stuck, he also says, isn't it adharmic to attack an unarmed warrior? Now, there are two beautiful things we can explore in this angle. One is the aspect that you are in a position to ask for dharma, to ask for dharmic treatment, quote unquote, when you yourself subscribe to your own dharma. Both Vali and Karna choose to violate dharma at multiple points. For in the case of Vali, he usurps of course, after his fiasco with his brother, he forcibly takes his brother's wife. Karna ensures that Draupadi is stripped in the entire Sabha. So both these people do not have any sense of internal dharma. That compass itself is crooked for them. But they project it from the outside world saying, no, but I want dharma to happen. So this is now it really makes me wonder, is it a question of Vali outside or a tendency inside, where I can behave how I want to behave? But these are the laws that have to be applied to me. So it's a different set of rules for me. It's a different set of rules for the world outside. Now, in both these cases is when we understand that dharma is not a rule written in a book, right? It's like you beautifully said, it is not something that it is extremely contextual. In this case, it is ultimately your own karma that is paying you back. It is not. Rama and Krishna here are just the metaphors for the way you used your entire life to attack people and to hit them when they least expected it against their wishes. That is coming back to you. And one, of course, the Valmiki Ramayana and the Bhagavatam beautifully answer, or the Bharatam, sorry, beautifully answer this. Also talking about a balance in nature. I'll come back to the dharma aspect, but I want to mention this before I forget it, that if you look at Rama Avataram, what happens is Sugriva is Suryaputra and Vali is Indraputra. Now in this Avataram, he supports Suryaputra, that is Sugriva, and he helps kill Indraputra. Go to Krishna Avataram. There, Arjuna is Indraputra and Karna is Suryaputra. So the balance is maintained. So in one avataram, if he's supporting Suryaputra, in the other avataram, he's ensuring that he's supporting Indraputra. So there is a larger balance that is maintained. But that is in terms of pure philosophy, in terms of what do Indra and Surya stand for, various forces of nature. This is something that you can apply at an environmental level in terms of regulatory practices that happen within Prakriti. But if you look at it purely from the perspective of dharma, here is when we start understanding that dharma is never a monolith. It is not, oh, this is 1, 2, 3 number laws that I need to follow. This is in terms of, have I been true to the Rama inside me, to the Krishna inside me? When I have duped them my whole life, Vali had multiple instances to sort things out with Sugriva. Sugriva went and begged for forgiveness also, saying that I thought you were dead. That's why I took over the kingdom. But Vali chooses to use brute force. Karna chooses to use brute force. Both these characters employ that and then suddenly expect that good will be done to them. So this hypocrisy of thinking gets exposed through this. And because we don't have the courage to sit and see these characters for what we are, we can paint them as very tragic heroes or say that, oh yes, deeply unfair deeds were met to them. And you can construct all kinds of layers around them, making them look like, they were the ultimate sufferers. But if you don't look at their own backstory, it doesn't do justice to the whole context of Dharma. That's at least my take on it.
So I will expand a little bit on that, because this is really interesting to me. Because if the instrument is helpless and must do what is told, it's a different matter. But when the instrument has prajna, then then you are not free, to do whatever whatever is written, you have to act according to context and sandarbha. You have to act. Right? So that is the reason I will say. See, when you look at Karna and the way he's interpreted, because I'm taking this liberty to go into another epic just to illustrate the same point. When you go to Karna, this whole idea of painting a tragic picture of how he was cheated in life. See, he gets to know the truth about his birth, and he dies in just in a couple of days. He dies. So it's not, that is the only suffering knowledge of cheating that he's got. Otherwise, he is cheated throughout, and he's privileged from where he comes from. His father is Adhiratha. He has the most privileged life till that point of time.
So absolutely.
To apply that out of context across time from his birth till then, when it's not in his consciousness at all, is that he was just a bad guy in many of those circumstances, right? That's what he was. And which person would be ashamed of his caste or community, except a person with extraordinary envy? Who else would be that, right? I say this because there is a Yakshagana prasanga about Vali, in which Vali says, he means Sugriva, took my wife. Why can't I take his wife? And Rama tells him, in his case, he didn't know, like you said, he didn't know. So it was a pramada.
It was a
pramada. But in your case, you knowingly want to do it. So it's an aparadha. So that is employing, context and conscience, to a problem. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that really highlights it, right? Like when you talk about relevance of the epics today, it's about employing that prajna, about saying this is a choice that I'm making. This is also a very pseudo spiritual idea that I don't have to do everything. I don't have to do anything at all. There is no choice. There is the illusion of choice. Not true. All these characters made choices, each of them, and they get rewarded as per their choices. If we look at the reward without looking at what they choose to employ, then we've lost the purpose of the epic itself. So I couldn't help but appreciate that. Very beautiful.
So beautifully put, Vinay. Absolutely that. People have a choice always. And the choice is not between this and that. Whether you do the right thing or not, that is the choice.
Very, very true. Very, very, very true.
Like anything else in the world you can do, but will you do the right thing or not? That is the choice.
Absolutely. And that is dharma, right? It's not about a word. And when dharma is translated, it's translated as duty, which it doesn't really come close. It's about personally understanding. It's the application of your conscience. There are various textbook definitions of dharma, and without getting into that, just applying your conscience to what is the right thing to do in that particular context. That's what has to shine through. And I think that's why these epics remain relevant at any point of time, because they do make us think about aspects. They make us think about this. There's some other aspects that they make us think about, but I'm sure you have another interesting question, so I'll leave that.
No, I have one more on Shurpanakha.
Okay.
Right. See, this whole idea of depicting Shurpanakha as somebody who is sensually attracted to Rama, and she tries to woo him, but like arrogant male, he punishes her. I think it's such a gross, like losing the entire metaphor of somebody who can use false beauty, for destroying. Whether it's conscious or not, she's actually participating in a brother's, terrible idea of actually creating somebody's, somebody's concert. That is the problem, and she tries to create by a delusion in the mind of the other. And the metaphorically, he must attack the instrument she uses to create the delusion. That's what I think. So I want you to elaborate that as well.
So I love the fact that you talked about that false beauty, because there is this idea of form changingness that we see repeatedly in the Ramayana as well. Hanuman also changes his form the very first time he meets Rama and Lakshmana. He says, Kapirupam Parityajya Hanuman Marutatmajaha Bhikshurupam Tadogatra. That he takes a Bhikshurupam and he goes for the very first time. What is his intention? His intention is not to intimidate these two princes and suddenly appear as a Vanara. What is the intention of Shurpanakha? She wants to go there to seduce. So fundamentally, again, it goes back to that aspect of what is the choice you are making? What is your sankalpa? Your sankalpam is what results, and look in Surpanaka's case, it's such a disastrous sankalpam because she goes there with that idea of I want to own and I'm willing to do anything that I can by hook or by crook. I must own Rama and Rama. It's not even Lakshmana in that matter. And then she takes that back and she goes and paints a very different story to her brother. Over there, she absolutely, completely, very happily misses out telling him the details that she went and took on this form and then tried to seduce them. There it is just, I wanted you to have this very pretty woman as your wife, but look at these people, they came in my way. So what extent was she willing to go to? Right? We look at that. And again, Shurpanakha can be painted as a very tragic character, somebody who just went, who was smitten by the Lord. If you look by this logic, everybody who was drawn to Rama responded to them with an equal amount of care and concern, whether it is Guha, whether it is Shabri, whether it is Sharabhanga, Sutikshna, Agastya, you name the people he comes across. And there it does not pertain to one category of people of saying it is just rishis or rishi patnis. Across castes, across creeds, Rama just embraces everybody. But he doesn't do that with Shurpanakha. And what is his prior enmity? Absolutely none, right? It's not like he even has a clue as to who she is. But fundamentally, the idea that your intent is recognized by a force larger than life. And you can do all the hoodwinking you want, but you can do it in the world here. You can't do it when it comes to Paramatma. That Valmiki puts out very beautifully. And also the aspect that even despite that, and I think that's also Valmiki's extraordinary genius in seeing people as people, that they have shades within them. Because we have something called the Ramaraksha Stotram, which is a very powerful stotram that invokes the protection of Rama. There we have a shloka that says, Tarunau Rupa Sampannau Sukumarau Mahabalo, which describes Rama and Lakshmana. That's the starting of the shloka. This shloka is taken from Valmiki Ramayana, uttered by Shurpanakha. Now it's very beautiful because here is somebody who came with a completely negative impression, but what she says is used later in a stotram invoking Rama's protection. So again, you go with the wrong intent, there is still some amount of positive interaction that happens when you see that. But still, your intent will not be forgotten. You cannot say, I went there with a bad idea, I changed my mind and I came down. That sankalpam carries its own balam. That's what we call sankalpa balam as well, right? So Shurpanakha again pays, just like Vali, she pays for what she does. And it has to be seen in the context of her intent. And that, without that, it's not fair to look at that entire episode, is my take on this.
He doesn't wage war against her. He doesn't kill her.
Exactly.
Just out of vanity.
Absolutely. And exactly, that discussion cannot be turned about how does he attack a woman. Because the very first time he has to attack a woman is when Vishwamitra's yajna has to be protected and he has to, kill Tataka. At that point, he says, she's a woman, I cannot attack her. And at that point, very beautifully, Vishwamitra says that cruelty, this kind of inhuman behavior, has no gender. So don't use that logic in this particular case. And here, it doesn't even strike Rama or Lakshmana to kill her. So Tataka and Shurpanakha cannot really be compared. But in terms of understanding that the lens or the filter of a gender cannot be applied here to be looking at what was done. It was done in the context of what is her intent and what has she come here to? She has come here not only to seduce Rama, but to kill Sita as well. That was her own intent. She only got paid back for that. She burnt her fingers, or in this case, her nose and her ears, in context of that. So, yeah.
And it's the dramatic conflict of it, in terms of pure drama, what he does is, there's a profound and a profane thing that can happen.
Yeah.
In this context, what happens is, here is a man in exile.
Yeah.
He's suffering. His wife has been taken away from him. It's not only his duty, he's also loyal to her.
Exactly.
He wants her, and he comes there. And there is this person who profanes that entire idea.
Yeah.
How is he going to react to that?
Absolutely.
And in the context of what he does later, that actually he never asks her to prove a chastity.
No.
He asks that it be demonstrated to the public. It's an opportunity given because he believes in her. Like you said, she believes in him. And and you must believe that right shall reward right at that level, in that kind of metaphor level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it is, I feel, So when people ask what is the use of the epic today, I'm saying if you have a moral construct that can lend itself to action. See, otherwise, if you can give a speech with it, it has a limited use. I mean, if you can apply it, in when you do something with your life, when you're really conflicted, what will you do? Is the question you need to ask. This idea of entitlement, you should look at it in one way. That I want to talk about what we just discussed in the morning. When you talk about feminism and what happens to Dasharatha, he keeps a promise, which, seems trivial in the context of the novel. And, he just sticks to it. And, there's a kind of, cold cruelty to the entire process there, it seems. But everybody pays for it. Everybody suffers. The supposed beneficiary of that thing, Bharata, feels humiliated and extremely unhappy with it. So nobody wins the story. And yet you carry this out, So I want to talk about this idea of this gender thing that they apply to the epic. When you look at the idea of Swayamvara, like somebody told me that, so he breaks that Dhanush and, so the father gives her. I said, that is not true. That is not the story. It is actually described as the Swayamvara. Nobody gives her. She chooses somebody, I said, And it's not compulsory after that test that she should pick him. She could be dissatisfied with something else, so. Anyway, so I want to talk about Dasharatha a bit. And, this Pitruvakya Paripalaka idea of Rama, because if he's going to inherit an empire,
True,
and an empire that his father is the custodian of, you're saying he's not obliged. That is the point also that I want to talk about. What do you think?
Beautiful. I think that inner conflict forms a big component in the story, right? It's just the idea of a word that Dasharatha gives and how that word is, of course, it's twisted against him. But the point is, how does he then take that word? What is Dasharatha's, and Ayodhya Kanda, Valmiki talks about it so much elaborately, where Dasharatha tells Rama, you come and kill me now, because if you kill me in this moment, then you will be free from having to take this word up. And you can then continue to rule. At the same time, he says all these things, but he doesn't say break the word. He tries to give him out, because he himself carries the weight of that word, saying, I gave my word. And that takes Dasharatha, and that is where his conviction of character comes out. It is not, she's just a woman. I just said it in passing. Ultimately, a king is the image of God. A queen is but a servant to him. He doesn't employ any of this logic. I gave a word to my wife. I gave a word to a woman, and I will live with that. And if in Dasharatha's case, he dies with it, not only lives with it. But that is very beautiful, that when that inner conflict comes, how do you navigate through that? What are the criteria that you use to navigate? And of course, this interpretation has also gone into gender roles, saying that, it wasn't necessarily right of Dasharatha to do this, or, it goes into, the focus goes into stereotyping Kaikeyi's character. But let's keep aside Kaikeyi. Just looking at what Dasharatha himself goes through, knowing fully well that in this case, Putra Shokam is what causes his death. And that is deeply unfortunate. Of course, there is a Shapam of Ravana Kumaram and all those things. But simply the idea that knowing fully well that he has a choice, again, he made this choice, saying he has to put himself behind now, because the power of the word is greater than the power of his own presence in this entire narrative, right? I think that's very, very beautiful. And that's the nuanced aspect of the Valmiki Ramayana. There is a lot of, typically a statement I hear a lot is that, Mahabharata is more gray and there's more beauty. But here, there are lots of, the story may be relatively more simple compared to the number of characters and the complexities that arrive in the Mahabharata. But here, these characters themselves go through a plethora of emotions. And when they do, how they find their balance between all of them. Because the same Kaikeyi who appears greatly villainous in this moment, she is very much present at the Pattabhishekam and she blesses him. She is very much present even to come and along with Bharata and to go and ask him to come back to the kingdom. So, we don't see too much of insight of what is going on in their mind. But that's when we have to infer that there is a larger narrative that is happening, and Dasharatha plays his part to that dharma so very beautifully. And somewhere, again, he's also in some senses a tragic hero, someone who gives up his own life because of that dharma. But of course, he gets rewarded in a larger sense. But it's very beautiful to actually look at for what it is.
No, he gets rewarded in a real sense in this way. I will say this, that it is that kind of deep integrity
It's integrity.
to keep the word that inspires Rama to do
Totally.
what he does. And which is why it is so important for him to be like that.
Exactly.
Let's flip the story and look at it slightly differently. Let's say he told Kaikeyi, look, I said it that time, but please, bear with it. I can't. He's the eldest. You like him so much because Kaikeyi is not a bad person. You should expect that in royal families these things happen. And if in royal families you don't keep the word, we have seen in history what happens. Sons kill fathers, brothers, sons kill uncles, and this what happens. For power they'll do everything. You must carry this idea of dignified transfer of power, because you're not doing it only for your age and time. You have inherited a set of values that you need to keep. That is Sanathana Dharma.
Beautiful.
So for Rama to carry this, to see the loss that his father makes, it hardens him to this kind of keeping the word.
It does.
If his father is willing to do this, to save the kingdom and its dignity and the Raghuvamsha's prestige, he may have to make the same hard decisions, same kind of hard decisions in his life.
Absolutely. And
actually, that's the point of it. Had he not gone, had he taken power at that time, and father had broken the promise, we wouldn't have had a Maryada Purusha in this story.
We wouldn't have. We would have just had a good king, like several others in the Raghuvamsham. Whoever you look at, Dilipa Chakravarti, you look at Sagara Chakravarti, all of them are great kings. But what distinguishes Rama from all of them? The fact that he's exposed to very difficult choices that need to be made. And it's not that the choices become easier once he goes into the forest. I mean, look at this. It is Bharata's mother who asks for this complicated and this very cruel thing. And then when Bharata comes, Bharata insists, saying, you must take it back. Rama has every choice to go back at that point. Bharata himself, for whom the king is relinquished, Bharata is now the king as per the story. Bharata can say, hey, I'm giving you this thing, you come back. Bharata begs and pleads. And Rama hardens here because he's seen what Dasharatha has sacrificed for the power of that word. So he finally, when he has to convince Bharata, because Bharata says, I will sit here in this ashramam, I will not move from here until you come back and you take kingship. Rama finally realizes there's no other way to convince Bharata. So he tells him, Dasharatha our father had two parts of the promise. I upheld my part, which was I have to come away for 14 years. The second part was that you will be king. So his promise is not going to be complete unless you go and uphold your part. So that understanding that, a word is sacrosanct because it allows character building. For whatever reason that word has been given, and for whatever reason now it has to be enabled, and doesn't have to be followed saying, yeah, I have no choice but to do this. Rama doesn't say it is what it is. He says, look, this is dharma. Yesho dharma sanatana. This is the eternal truth that whatever is promised has to be carried out. And let us carry it out with grace and with joy. And that's what frames his character. That's what allows him to experience all these things. At the same time, be aware that a commitment is a commitment at the end of the day.
One of the greatest things we can learn from this story for me is that if you see in the courts of India, cases that are, pending, on land dispute in families between siblings. If you see in homes, so much tension and so much compromise of grace, since that word happens. See, when you look at it, there's a great lesson to learn here. Why would Lakshmana go? You see what is his obligation in any way?
Exactly.
He's never going to become king in the foreseeable future.
Never. Absolutely.
What is in it for him? And there is that Urmila there, and that story is so beautiful. When he says, I want to keep niga on my brother, so keep me awake for those 14 years. You know, make it make it those 14 years one night for me. So when I wake up, see my husband. You know, it is so beautifully done. You know, that sacrifice is, you know, made gracious rather than a violin playing in the background. You know, You know, so I'm saying isn't there much to learn from this?
Beautiful, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, you look at characters like Lakshmana and Hanuman, what do they gain from their Swadharma Palana? What is in the very first instance is when Vishwamitra comes and asks for Rama. Rama is asked for. Dashratha does not ask Lakshmana to come. Rama does not ask Lakshmana to come. Lakshmana just comes. And he doesn't leave his side till the end. In the end of the Yuddhakanda and the Pattabhishekam, Rama says, become my prince regent and, you know, rule this entire Ayodhya with me. Lakshmana declines it and finally Rama gives it to Bharata. Even there, you look at choice and that kind of surrenders. And I think that's what the relevance of the epics is. You look at, you know, three different kinds of sibling relationships that you have over here. You have Rama and his brothers. You have Sugriva and Vali. You have Ravana and Kumbhakarna, which is very different from Ravana and Vibhishana. Again, very, very beautiful tales, right? Like, how do you manage conflict? And I think Vibhishana also becomes a great way of understanding how much do you do Swadharma? How much do you survive in your dharma? You know, how much can your dharma protect you in a land that is, or in a space that is affecting your own practice of that dharma? Because Vibhishana follows a very different trajectory. That he says, up till now I can do, but beyond this, I'm leaving Lanka. So at some point, he acknowledges that my Swadharma is taking me in a different direction. Versus Rama and his brothers, who have a totally different, you know, their interpretation of dharma is very, very. So it's very personal and very nuanced. And I think, like you said, when we look at family politics, when we look at the idea that properties are dividing people, that there is strife, there is so much of stress around wealth. How did these brothers navigate through those spaces, right? How did these relationships survive? I mean, the Mahabharata again opens up that beautiful trajectory as well. But the conviction to make a choice and to last it, you know, at the end of 14 years also, he can easily just directly go back to Ayodhya. But he stops at Nandigrama where Bharata is. And he first says, Bharata, I've come back. And Bharata says, you know, I've waited for 14 years and today was the last day. If you hadn't come today, I would have given up my life. And at that point, also Rama asks him, Bharata, even now, if you tell me that you want the kingdom, let it be yours. I will happily give over this entire kingdom to you. And Bharata asks, saying, are you testing me? You know, it's so nuanced and so beautiful that you understand that the characters are truly experiencing not only all the emotions, but are able to they're looking at familial ties, they're looking at Raja Dharma, they're looking at Swadharma, they're looking at their own karma. And just so much can be said about this. So.
You know, there are so many versions of the Ramayana, and you know, you can when you drop the miracles, and you know, you put angles to it, whatever you do, in the core story is hidden this extraordinary drama. You know,
that's true. That's beautiful.
Give that up. There's a Michael Madhusudan version of it that somebody told me. I haven't read it myself. And because we're saying how we can interpret this for our own, you know, lifetimes, you know, our own times. There is a story because Michael Madhusudan that twists the story of Lakshmana's Murcha. What he says is that Indrajit is doing Sandhya Vandana, and Lakshmana stealthily enters the palace.
Okay.
So from behind, he takes him to kill Indrajit, but you know, the hairs on his back rise because of the taking of aim, and Indrajit ducks and takes the Uddharane and he hits him with it, and it hits his temple, and Lakshmana loses consciousness. Indrajit walks up and he doesn't do anything. He calls the guards and says, "Who let this man inside?" And you know, they're all ashamed and they don't talk. And Vibhishna finally opens his mouth and says, I asked that he be sent in.
Wow.
He says, why? He says, because you know what brother Ravana has done is wrong. So, you know, I want to take the side of the, of Rama in this. So it is Indrajit who tells Vibhishana, uncle, if there's something wrong with our people and somebody among us is doing wrong, it's for us to find a way to punish them.
Wow.
It is, it is not to invite somebody from the outside to do it. Now,
Beautiful.
this is not Valmiki's intent of Ramayana at all.
Yeah,
This is a freedom fighter's intent to say,
Yeah.
don't collaborate with the British. That's what he's trying to say, okay?
Yeah, beautiful.
But
Beautifully put.
because it is so beautiful, there are so many versions. This version can be allowed. We don't get disturbed by this story because it seems so beautiful.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's one more
Absolutely.
story to say, and I'll come to. There's a play called Prachanda Ravana in Canada. It is a company Nataka. It is in which at the last moment, Rama says he cannot go to war without doing a yagna to take permission from Mother Earth to conduct this war because I'm going to shed blood on her. So I need to take her permission to do a yagna. So Lakshmana gets fed up and he says, where in this part of this land you're going to bring some adhwari who can come and do this for you? And Vibhishana steps in. And he says, my brother can do it. Rama says, are you crazy? I'm going to war against him. He says, but he's a Mahabrahmana.
He's a Mahabrahmana. Yes, I've heard this.
It's his duty. He cannot refuse.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So they send word and Ravana comes and he does the yagna. And Rama and Lakshmana touch his feet because he's done the yagna, conducted it for them.
Yeah.
He says, Vijayi Bhava.
And once he said that, he's given up. I mean, now it's understood, right?
Yeah. So my point is that it is not true to the whatever the original, let us say. Okay. My point
true. Absolutely. But that's okay.
The dharma of the original one. That's what
exactly. Yeah. So that's the beauty, right? That there is here it becomes, and like you said, these stories don't bother us. They don't, because this contradiction, and I think that's a question that keeps coming up for people about Ramayanas as to which version do I take? But in every version lies a beautiful dharma sukshma, what we define as the subtleties of dharma that can overarchingly look like either an adharma or very dharmic, but at its core has some very deep, beautiful aspect to convey, and that changes the entire engagement with the epic. I mean, if you just looked at this episode alone, look at what Ravana would have gone through to be able to bless him to conduct that entire homam as an adhvari.
That is Sanathana Dharma also.
That is Dharma, absolutely. So
you were telling me, Vinay, I want everyone to listen to that. You were telling me there's A.K. Ramanujan's story of Sita saying, when she says, I'll go to the forest with you.
Absolutely. So I think, again, the timelessness of the Ramayana, right? If you just look in Puranas alone, you have, apart from Valmiki, you have Adbhuta Ramayana, Ananda Ramayana, Adhyatma Ramayana, so many different versions within that, where you see a host of changes from the main story. And in one of these Ramayanas, we see that very beautifully when the very important conversation is happening between Rama and Sita when he's about to leave for the forest, and she says that, I'm going to come. In the Valmiki Ramayana, he gives a list of all the dharmas that she must stay back at home and practice as the daughter-in-law of the Ikshvaku house. And but in this version, we see that she listens to all of this and she says, Rama, I'm going to come. And he says, why? What's your ultimate reasoning for coming? And she says, in no version of the Ramayana does Sita get left behind, so let me come. And I think that is so beautiful, because in that itself, there's an acknowledgement that, in this timeless story, there are certain things that are non-negotiable, and one of them is that Sita and Rama are eternally together. Absolutely. And I think that's so beautiful, because that takes away contradictions. It allows for like all these versions, but in all these versions, there are some common elements. So I think that's also a way to look at relevance of Ramayana, in the sense that there are certain themes that bind the Ramayana together. And one such is the togetherness of holding each other through difficult times, which Rama and Sita do very, very beautifully and very in very succinct ways. Maybe we'll talk about that as we take some of the questions. Varsha, could you just kind of help us through the questions, because I think there are quite a few, so we might.
There are about 6 questions. Either one of you can address them. So our first question is, I am told that there is no concept of Lakshman, Rekha in the Valmiki Ramayana. Is this true? And can you please elaborate on this?
Yeah,
There
neither
is no
the
Lakshman Rekha, but I'm not an scholar on this, so but I know that there is no Lakshman Rekha.
exactly that there is no Lakshman Rekha. It comes in the Kritibas Ramayana, which is the Bengali Ramayana. That is the first place that we see a mention of it. Tulsi Ramayana also makes a reference to it, but doesn't directly create that context of him drawing the Lakshman Rekha itself.
Okay. We have a question on the Mahabharata. Along with Karna, why did the Pandavas also choose to keep quiet when Draupadi was insulted in the court?
So I think this question warrants a larger context of what is happening there in the system of Dharma, right? The first onus is always pushed towards the brothers saying, why did they keep quiet? If you look at the basis of that question, Draupadi herself asks, saying, on what basis did Yudhishthira even wager her when he lost himself? How could he possibly have, had called Draupadi his own when he's already lost himself? But the Pandavas keeping quiet there is again because the power of the word that they have lost, they have become dasas to the Kauravas. But I think what's important there to ask is, of course, the Pandavas themselves feel terrible about it, and Draupadi feels miserable about it too, and she makes it very known. But to take that incident away from the fact that Karna was the one who facilitates this entire thing, that he asks for Draupadi to be brought there, I don't think that should be distanced when we are looking at a character sketch of Karna, because he makes those choices again. So just highlighting the question to look at the larger context of what is happening.
Because one person is a perpetrator. The
Exactly.
brothers of victims of Yudhishthira's, lack of continence in the matter of gambling.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's that nuance has to be understood for what it is, and it cannot be painted in any other.
It's something that doesn't occur to Duryodhana. It is Karna.
Yes, exactly.
She's also your property. Yeah.
Exactly. So and that's also that idea that at some level Duryodhana is just brute strength, right? He doesn't have that sharp acumen that Karna has, because Karna is the one who plants this idea saying, hey, now she's your slave, so why not bring her here, fully aware that this is against any kind of dharma, fully aware that Draupadi is elsewhere because she's in her periods during those times. So what does he, how he instigates, and like you said, he becomes the trigger for the perpetrator. We all look at Dushasana as the villain in this aspect, but Karna is the one who enables all of this. And when he's asked, saying, how are you even okay with this? He says, what is the big deal? This woman already belongs to 5 men. So look at Karna's his own perverse thoughts that he's able to enable this. But this will quickly turn into discussion in the Mahabharata.
Yeah,
so
correct.
take it
Because it's too complex. There are so many factors playing in that story. That's why.
Yeah.
Right. The next question is by Harsha. He says, Namaskar, thank you for doing this seminar. Being initiated in Indian epics, I tend to understand learning from Lord Krishna helps an individual to deal with life challenges, and learnings from Lord Rama helps an individual to build a good family, a community, or a society. Is my understanding correct? Please shed some light if this question is within the context of this event.
So I'll just quickly take it, and I'd love to hear your take on this, Prakash, as well. But I think for me, I don't think it would be saying either or. So it's not that Rama alone caters to one perspective. If you look at certain ideas that we see today, which are very important in terms of, for a lot of people, like say mindfulness or gratitude, all of these are very personal ideas. You see Rama enabling, and Rama himself embodying some of these things. So it's not that Krishna's Bhagavad Gita message is disconnected from the way Rama lives his life. What Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Rama does in the Ramayana. That is a link and helps us look at something. It's not that they are different characters who cater to different parts of our existence. They have all of what is relevant to us today lies within that character. You can see all of the navarasas that Rama exhibits. You can see all of the gunas that Rama exhibits, which are identical to Krishna's gunas as well. It's just that the focus there is Bhagavad Gita. If the focus here may not be a formal Gita, but we have a Rama Gita as well that comes in one of the Puranas. So I would say we have to kind of view them from a zoomed out lens as opposed to just looking at one aspect. But Prakash, I'm sure you have something beautiful to add.
No, I agree with you. The idea here is that I'm just sorry, I have to decline a call. Okay, see, the idea here is, I'm so sorry. Can you hear this telephone call ringing? I don't know how to cut it.
No.
Yeah. See, the both the epics are about dharma, but in a strange way. I'm really saying it in a crude way. The Ramayana is more mugdha. It is more komala. It is a more innocent idea of depiction of dharma. So where Mandodari tells, Ravana, did you bring them here with her permission?
Yeah, yeah,
It's an echo of this thing, no? Did my brother did he sell um, did he gamble away his own agency before he committed us? When
yeah.
Draupadi, it's the same thing about saying, did you did you obtain agency from the
Consent.
in other person involved? It's the same idea of dharma. What happens in Ramana is kind of quite pure. It comes quickly. But in the Mahabharata, it comes with complications and motivations. So it nuances it even more. So sometimes it looks like it has no dharma at all,
Yeah, yeah,
But that,
yeah.
but the thing is, both these are about dharma. And at the extremity of our situations, in a everyday life, all of us can behave really well, perhaps, we'll be
True.
gracious and beautiful, respectful, everything. But when it comes to a critical situation, a kind of life and death question, or when you're going to lose land or wealth, or we're going to lose power, you won't be made chief minister, somebody else will be made. How will you behave at that point of time? Really, we have to see who we are at this extreme. Otherwise,
Beautiful.
we don't know who we are. We can convince ourselves we are great people, but we're not. And these stories test these characters, especially your primary characters, to the extreme. No human being should be tested like Rama is tested. No human being should be tested like Sita is tested, right? You don't want that, but you can actually see what great conflicts can come in your life and what nature of helplessness can come to you. But when you exercise choice, and that choice in ethical one, then you have agency left with you. Actually, that is the story both, I would think. That's the common thing. They're told differently for a different
Beautiful.
class.
Beautiful. You've put it so, so beautifully. But how do you choose to respond in adversity, in the face of a conflict, right? I think that's a beautiful way of putting it.
Thank you.
So our next question is by Vashini. She asked, how do you find the right thing to do? And how do we decide whether that is the right one or not?
So I think, at least the way I see it, dharma is not, like I said, it's not a monolith. It's about staying true to your conscience. And cliche as it may sound, your conscience will inevitably give you a sense of what is right in this context. Again, right has to be underlined not as a universal right, but in terms of what is in this particular context, what should work, what do you submit to, right? Ultimately, we all, as human beings, don't have any particular way of knowing whether a decision that we're making is right or wrong. But what is the level of sharanagati or surrender within you that when you actually have to make, when you're posed with two choices, do you have the grace to be able to make that choice and say Krishna Panam and offer that choice, saying, I'm truly doing this with my intentions in the right place? It goes back to your sankalpam. At least that's the way I would see it. Prakash, maybe you have something.
I want to tell a strange story, which is not from the epics. When they wanted to introduce the third umpire concept in cricket, they were testing it during a one-day series in India. Because all the great camera work happens with Indians. We are pioneers in these cricket match coverages. Actually, now I don't know who does, but in India, actually from Bangalore it started. And so they were testing it in India, and Azharuddin had scored 2 centuries. There had been run-out appeals, which you could see in the camera that he had been run out. But they could show it in normal speed. How the umpire cannot tell. Basically, there was whoever they wanted to sell the idea of the third umpire that it should be done. So they were showing how it is very good. And I think David Gower was the expert commentator on Doordarshan.
Okay.
And they were discussing how the umpire cannot tell at that speed, the human eye cannot judge, and all that they were saying. And Gower said to that commentator, "Have you played cricket?" He said, "Yes, of course, I've played first class cricket." Something he said. He said, "The batsman always knows." So, look, if you want to do the right thing, it'll occur to you
It will occur to you.
Yeah, it'll
It
occur
will.
to you.
It will occur. Yeah.
Whether you can do Atma Vanchana and not do it,
Yeah.
or whether you will go through whatever it takes. With people advising you, don't be stupid, you will say, you will walk, is what it is about.
Yeah, you will do the right. It will occur to you. I think that's a very beautiful takeaway. I hope the question has been answered. I think it's very, very clear through that. Pasha, any other questions?
Yeah. Since our texts and scriptures are so layered and nuanced, and context is very important to understand their message, how does one react to the fact that they're open to interpretation and that the interpretation is often misused to hurt Sanatana Dharma and its followers?
So I think, at least the way I see it, it's important to, like Vijayalakshmi Aunty said in the very beginning itself, right? It's about questions are not wrong. Questioning something and saying, hey, what's going on here is absolutely not wrong. But are you taking the effort to actually engage with the source when you make that question? Throwing a work question is fine, but do you have the necessary attention span or the necessary capability to sit through it and see through it? Because none of these things are in isolation. The Valmiki Ramayana is not just one particular book. It is, yes, it is a printed book, but it connects to so many different ideas. So I think the idea of, engaging is great, but to be able to, an interpretation is also great. But in turning it into, the idea of if it is used to hurt people or followers of Sanatana Dharma, then familiarize yourself. Familiarize yourself with what the book is saying, because then if tomorrow somebody is going to say something, then you at least have for yourself the knowledge to be able to say that, hey, this is not a fact. I know what this is. I know how this needs to be interpreted. But credible sources of information, like anything else, like, observe where is that interpretation coming from? What meaning and what beauty and value do you feel that you're deriving from that interpretation? At least that's the way I see it.
There are separate discourses, and that is what is somewhat distressing. I mean, if there was a genuine debate, we will say, what is the religiosity of it? And religiosity of where you come from. What are your miracles? What are these miracles? What are the metaphorical values of your miracles? What are the metaphorical values of our miracles? What is the core ethicality in question here?
What is the
core ethicality?
Absolutely.
Or challenging it with? That discourse has not happened. It's a rigged game. Right. And there are victims in this, and the victims are actually good people, because they want to do the right thing. Yeah. And there's one kind of discourse that reaches them because of Macaulay and so on. We all go to the same kind of colleges, schools, and we get the same non-detailed, whatever text we used to get, we get that. You don't get this so easily.
That's true.
So where do you get this story? You have to really struggle to learn. Where do you get this? No, so some of us are lucky. I'm lucky as a practitioner, so I encounter this. Because you're doing a play, you're rehearsing it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and then you question and you come to terms with it. But if you don't look at it at all, what will you get? You'll get the interpretation that somebody who does not see. The thing is, there's a great problem if you've not been able to read it in Sanskrit. What does yoga mean, for instance, in English? You'll have to do in the Amar Kosha, it'll probably be 3 pages if you go to.
Exactly.
So the thing is, there is no dhvani, in the conversation, in the discourse, if you don't know the original text. So that is the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have 2 more questions, and I'm going to combine both of them.
Sure.
The question is, when Rama was asked to leave for Vanavasam, he was a crown prince already. Yet he chooses to follow Swadharma by following Pitr Yagna over Rajadharma. But during Sita's Agni Pravesham, he chooses Rajadharma by asking her for Agni Pravesham and Aranyavasam over Swadharma. How can this be understood on a larger picture? This is the first question.
Okay.
The second one is, when we talk about Pitr Vakya Palana, does that mean that one listens to everything a parent says? And how does one interpret the context and intent behind the advice or command given by a parent? The audience is asking for a rebellious friend that they have.
Okay. Firstly, I would not say that Rama chooses Swadharma over Rajadharma when he listens to his father. It's not. There are both the dharmas are very much in action. His father is the king and it is his father. Both these contexts very much apply. So he is not choosing one over the other. When we look at, again, the idea of Agni Pravesham, he does not ask Sita to enter that Agni. She asks for the Agni to be set up. He says you can go wherever you choose to. She asks for an Agni to be set up. So there he establishes, or he reinstates, that he is looking at his Rajadharma with complete focus now. Even when he's looking for Sita, like we said, all of that time we see Rama's Swadharma, that he is unable to be with Sita. He doesn't say, as a king, it is my duty to protect her. He says, without Sita, I am absolutely nothing. So over there, we have to see them as two pieces of a larger, two parts of one piece that fit together, and not see them in isolation. So Swadharma and Rajadharma are always going to run. Rajadharma there in Rama's case, you substitute as our dharma towards society at large here in our own context. They're always going to run parallel. We're not going to have options where you can say, oh yes, right now Swadharma, tomorrow Rajadharma. It doesn't work in that context. So giving them their due and their space and not compromising on their core ethics, that's what I see through these chain of events.
I would like to answer both questions again with completely outside stories, because if you look at it from the outside, you can see it fresh again. Perhaps that's why. I met a very devout Sikh, much older person, in strangely in Australia, and he told me this really small thing. There was this girl who had come to some lecture by a Sikh philosopher in I think he mentioned London, and during the Samvada, during the Q&A, there was this girl who stood up and she asked this question, because the first question, how to be good, kind of thing. She said, Guruji, tell me how to be humble. And I believe he said, what is there to be proud of? This opens into the next question. See, it seems like such a simple thing.
Yes.
So you say, why should you listen to your parents? I'll say, look, we answered this question a little bit before, no, where we said that he's going to inherit the kingdom. He's willing. Now you look at this wokeism is not a problem of Indian villages, no? See, because, when the 26/11 attack happened in Mumbai, that hotel, at the Taj, there were 600 employees at work, and less than 600, some 500 odd guests were there.
Right.
And there are numbers, 3 dozen exits or something were there. And all the employees knew all the exits. And through the trauma of that time, of those terrible hours of killing and shooting and all that, not a single one left. And then, Harvard did a business school, did a study of it. And, I will cut to the chase. And they couldn't identify why this happened. Ratan Tata didn't know, the HR department didn't know. And they went through the records of people who had been employed. And what they found was very simple. Every person had been employed from small town India or villages. Nobody from big cities was employed there. Okay? So this wokeism is a problem of a certain ultra-cosmopolitan setting. It doesn't come otherwise. I want to ask those people who have questions in English, if they realize that, to be able to ask questions in English is like a super privilege in India. It's a gift of education that is denied to more than 1 billion people. Okay. And, you are probably not even in the range of millions, maybe, so, or maybe just about there in such a big country. And, you are a beneficiary of so many ways, speaking in English, of education. And because you can speak in English, even if you don't know engineering, you'll get a job. You'll get well paid for just talking in English, even if you don't know how to write so well. So basically, like, you count the privileges you get, and you see where you get it from. If the work you do gives you a salary of 1 lakh rupees per month, and a farmer who grows tomatoes gets, say, 20 rupees per kilo, how do you arrive at this? I don't want to listen to the expression of market forces and such. We're talking about your conscience. What is it? Your work was worth that much, and the farmer's work is not worth that much. I'm saying what a conscience means. You can ask questions, direct it first to yourselves, and maybe we'll have a better conversation then.
Yeah. Beautifully put. I think it's about acknowledging the privileges that we come with and what we use again those privileges for, right? Just seeing them in light of them. That's a very powerful example of 2611 that you brought up to that. So, Varsha, do we have any other questions? I think we can take one last question and close it.
I think we have exhausted our question bank.
Good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we've come to the end of it. And
You should retire at the top, actually. When you're doing well, you should retire. So, yeah.
Yeah, that has been a very intriguing back and forth conversation on a topic that is so important to have in this day and age. And all of the points that both of you have discussed are those points that people specifically pick out of the Ramayana to diss the itihaasa, and it's been addressed so beautifully and intertwined to the scenario in the present day. And so the audience, I would like to tell you that this session has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube page. So I request all of you to share this with your dear ones or those who have these questions in their head. Thank you so much, Prakash ji and Vinay, for this fascinating session. We wish we could have had it for a longer time, but maybe another day. I'm sure Vigrahavan is already planning one as I speak now. So thank you to the audience for having joined us today. I hope you've enjoyed the session as much as we have. Tomorrow we have a session with Srimati Vijayalakshmi Vijay Kumar and Professor Michael Sternfeld on the journey through Hanuman to the Ramayana. And on the 7th of April, we will have a conversation with Shivakumar GV and Ms. Ami Kanatra on the women in Ramayana. So with that, we close the session for today. Auntie, would you like to say a few words?
I think we've gone way beyond time, but I would like to say that, the conversation was really nice. And the only one thing that I always like to tell people is when you ask a question like, is the Lakshman Rekha there is it true? Is it there? No, read the Ramayana and check. Read Valmiki's Ramayana and you'll know if it's there or not. It's a very simple thing because most people want answers without actually reading. And most people make comments about, I said this in the beginning, make comments and observations without even reading the text, without even really knowing anything. But they will read some small little, something from the print or the media or wherever it comes. And then immediately there'll be a whole big conversation about this. Well, actually, nobody has really read the text or understood the text. So, I mean, it'll be great if people actually went to our originals and started, reading. You don't want to read, at least listen to somebody. So, I mean, with that, I think we'll say Sarve Bhavantu and end the session.
Thank you, Vijayaka. Thank you, Vinay. It's been a privilege, to talk
Privilege
to
is
you.
entirely mine. Next time, I hope I can speak less and listen more.
No. We should meet. Thanks.
Yes.
When we thought of this, I thought that you will be the best combination.
Thank you.
Said it will be a good combination because we have somebody who's an older person and somebody who's a younger person. So he'll come from his age, like you already said, and you'll come from your age. And if you notice, everything has been pretty contemporary.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting me on this.
Because the Ramayana is contemporary. I mean, the problems that were there in Ramayana are there today. It's nothing that it was then. Okay, maybe the act of saying do Agni Pariksha is not there, but there's a different kind of Agni Pariksha that's there. It's just similar, that's all. So I think there's no end to this because Ramayana is like that. So I think we should end the session now. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसोर्मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। So all your permissions will end the meeting today.